o'clock. Good evening. Meeting on January 10th. Regular board meeting of the Board of Education.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Nardi, can we have a call to order, please? I'm sorry. Can we have a roll call?
Here.
I'm just jumping around.
Ms. Gasko?
Here.
Ms. Ruska?
Here.
Ms. Locke?
Here.
Mr. Bedford?
Here.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
And Ms. Salas?
Here. And do we have any visitors this evening? Not seeing any. We'll move on to an update on district goals under discussion district information items.
The district goals, the PDF, Mary Ann is including at each meeting. A question for the board is whether or not when we have cow meetings, should we just keep this for the cow meeting or do we want to leave this on discussion information items? My initial thought was to leave it so that we can provide a brief update or the board can see if there's been some things added. We did add a few points to the facilities group, just that we met with the zoo, and we're looking at some things there. In regards to the district goals, the communication survey, our representative from School Perceptions that did the communication survey that went out to the community as well as parents and students will be presenting on January 24th. So the board will see those results a few days before the meeting to generate questions, and then I'm going to see if we can get his PowerPoint as well. Kristen and I are having one more meeting with him at the end of this week. So the goal would be to have him submit his PowerPoint for the packet so that the board can see that prior to the 24th when we go through the results. That's my update on district goals.
So I would suggest monthly is sufficient, but what does everyone think?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the communication presentation, so thanks for getting that done. Any update on FOIA requests?
FOIA requests, we had two FOIAs, one from Embassy 5 requesting some personnel records and one from local labs looking for name, date of birth. We usually get these on a regular basis. In regards to the personnel request, when a file is very large, we will not put that in the board packet just because it's extremely large. We share it via Google Doc. But if somebody would like a copy of that FOIA response, I can easily provide that through you. We could have IT transfer that through a Google Doc to your board account. There was one question submitted, and we can address that in closed session.
Thank you, Dr. Skinkis. And then we had a request from Ms. Ruska to add the IASB conference report to the discussion.
Yes. And so I know we've discussed the IASB. A lot of people get it confused with the Illinois School Board, ISBA. They are two separate organizations, and so we thought, well, what do they do for us? We pay membership dues, and how are we using them? So IASB is the Illinois Association of School Boards. Most professions have a professional association that handles their education and any kind of requirements or certificates that need to be done, and conferences. When I worked in medical education, every year we had a huge conference, and that's where you had presentations and speakers and education, things like that. So Illinois Association has I think for a professional association, offers many resources for those of us as school board members. And so just to give the quick fact sheet, there are 848 school districts in the state of Illinois. There's about 6,000 school board members. And when we all come on, none of us have any training, or there's not anything you would have done in your regular line of work to know how this job would run. So what the association does is that they provide all this training. So let's go to the next slide. A couple of things that I like about them. Their vision, and we talk about that when we do the delegate meeting, is that they are all about local governance. And when we think about the state of Illinois, you don't have to go very far south to see the difference. Once you get south of I-80, it starts to look very different than what it looks like in Chicago. And when I'm at the delegate meeting, there were 400 people there So that represented 400 districts. And those districts are from all over the state. Every district gets one person. And you come together, and what you're doing is you are going to be talking about issues that impact policy decisions that are going to impact education. So let's go to the next one. Next slide. I only have 6 slides. They're strategic priorities, and I like the fact that the association holds them up front. I mean, number 4, their goal, everything they do is to educate us as board members about policy and laws affecting Illinois. So one of the sessions I went through at the conference, this was their book, was on what are we doing in governance. And they said, in the state of Illinois, our Congress in Springfield passes 10 to 12,000 bills every year. The next state under us is Ohio with 1,200. So what our association is doing is they are in there knee deep weeding through all that because everybody's coming up with ideas. There's no way that schools or the average individual could manage things like that. So I gave everybody a handout, and this spoke directly to our president's question, what do they do for us legally? And this was a quick summary on the overview of the year. And you'll see on like page 2 or 3 where it talks about the bills that did not pass. So the lobbyists cannot be there for every single bill that is being discussed, but the ones that are pertinent, and there are a couple email listservs that as board members we can sign up, and we are kind of alerted when something is being discussed on the House floor so that we can call our Congress men or women and say either we support that or not. And then we can give direction to our association where to put their resources. So you have a list just this year of the ones that did not pass because of their lobbying actions. And then on the next page, it shows the bills that were supported by Illinois Association that did pass, that did get put through, that they did bring in resources and lobby and talk to people. So when we wonder what are they really doing, some of these things are significant and very important to us. Where number 4, where it says educate the members, this year alone, the association has added 75 online video podcasts for education. So that's just huge, letting you know about the legalities of being a school board member, and there's a focus on diversity, there's different focuses on security, learning, education, what we can do as board members. Let's go to the next slide. Another thing I love about this association is their founding principles. So as board members, we are professionals, and we come with talents and skills. But what we have to continually remind ourselves is that we are not school employees. And so it's not our job to run the school, to fix the school, to be the architect, to be the teacher, to be the principal, to be the assessor, to be any of that. And so these principles really guide our behavior, school board members, and then all these podcasts help us, how do we do that? And what we're supposed to be doing at this high level is we're setting goals. What are the priorities of a school that we are focused on? If we're focused on student learning, that becomes our priority. That becomes something that we're going to focus on. And then our role is we have to monitor the performance. And how are we going to do that? We're going to delegate authority. How are we going to delegate authority? Well, we hire one person. We hire the superintendent. And that superintendent is going to pick a team, and he's going to pick a team to help us get to that goal that we as a board have discussed, which was important. So the association helps the board member stay, what they always say, off the dance floor and back in your seat where you can help the bigger visions and drive the vision for the whole community as you work for your whole community. Let's go to the next slide. So there's some of the counties. You look at Cook County, there we are up just on top. And again, it came at the delegate assembly. People from Chicago and many of the districts in Chicago believe that they should have more votes. But every single school district gets only one vote. If Chicago got votes per capita of their students, the rest of the state wouldn't see anything that was important to them because they just have so many students in that one spot. Whereas Southern Illinois has the same issues about getting a resource officer, about school safety. They have the same issues. Charter schools are huge in downstate Illinois because charter schools draw from the same tax base. And so when they start to talk about policies and spending at the state level, how do we manage that? So a problem that is hitting some of the underserved communities on the south side of Chicago because their business districts have diminished is the same issue that some of our very rural communities are having. And so now something like a charter school will cut into that kind of funding. So here you have those conversations where the districts with one vote can finally come to the table, and it's now, well, I have more, so I'm going to push this conversation. No, we can talk about real things. Let's go to the next slide. There's another resource that they gave, some list of the services, the journals. We get 6 a year. These are a nice, easy read, beside all the things they have online. Let's go to the next one. The press packet, that is huge. There's one in our board packet, so we'll be kind of going over that and bringing working with the superintendent for a recommendation. For us to have to go over every policy and look at every law in the state every year to see if there was a change or a tweak, that would be an immense job. And that is one of the services that we as a board, we probably got that about 10 years ago and worked with the association and went through every single one of our policies, and then they update it. And as the laws in Illinois change, they then send that to us and say, here's an update, or here's something you want to consider adding, and you have that choice. Unless it's by law, then we have to add it. On the other side, I just put some of the list of the things that they were doing with different kind of pamphlets they have. There's pamphlets on your school calendar, new school laws, recruiting board members, training board members, finance, school design for your data. All of these are different questions that board members have asked, and the association has taken it upon themselves to seek out information and make that available to board members. And we get this resource through our membership. Let's go to the next slide. The annual conference, they had two. I went to the second and the third general session, and I'm hoping when we have our division meeting, we can piggyback off of this. Many of you might have heard about Chef Jeff Henderson. He's this famous chef in San Diego, but he spent 10 years in prison. He was, as a young man, didn't like school, flunked out of school, sold cocaine for 10 years, and was a very wealthy, I guess he said, gang member in California until he was arrested. There in jail, he had the chance to re-educate himself, and he learned from different business people and found out that he had a knack for cooking and started cooking in the prison. And that skill he learned in prison, he brought outside of prison and became a chef at an elite hotel in Vegas. And then because his talking engagements became so significant, he had to leave his chef position. But what he does now, with part of his career, is he brings troubled youth from the inner city. And he was describing, he says, what we do is I bring them in and we cook a meal. We make some fried chicken. I asked him, how hungry are you? And he says, here's gang members from the different part of the city that went and talked to each other. But it takes us about 3 hours to make that meal. And after we spend all day cooking the meal, we'll come to the table, we'll eat, we'll actually talk to each other. He says, because he grew up in that, and he talked about an alternative education that reaches into some of our most troubled youth. Incredible story he had, very powerful, and that's another thing we get as a member, to be able to hear somebody like that. You know, when he has speaking engagements, I couldn't afford the ticket to go see that, and what it means for education and alternative education, huge. The woman on the side, Amanda Ripley, is a journalist, and her work, I hope we can also bring in, was listening and kind of conversations as we start to talk about diversity. She said we all think we're listening, but we're really not listening, and started to break it down. When do you really start to hear what people are saying, and don't put up those barriers? And she also had a very powerful talk. And as we move into one of our board goals in diversity and start looking at different community outreach and engagement, that too was poignant to some of our board goals that we were talking about. So again, what our association and our dues pay for is they are bringing resources to us that are incredibly valuable. It's distilling all that legal jargon and all those laws so that we can interpret it and we can understand it, and we can see what the state is moving, and we have an opportunity to even propose resolutions and to propose policy for the state. So I just wanted to bring that up for the association. We always want, what do they do? Well, they do quite a bit.
Okay, well, thank you, Laura, for, you're obviously a strong advocate for IASB, so I appreciate your enthusiasm. And for Carolyn, I'm not sure if you know, but Laura does serve as our representative.
No,
to
that's fine. I'm familiar with it from Quebec.
Okay. There you go. And we spend a considerable amount of money for IASB services, so I encourage everyone to take advantage of them. So thank you. Moving on. Any additional discussion items? Any future thoughts, presentations from anyone on the board? Then we do have the consent agenda, starting with the approval of minutes.
The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, takes the following action on the listed consent agenda items. Approves minutes from the meetings held on December 13, 2022, open and closed, as presented in the January 10, 2023 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
And a second from Mr. Welch. Roll call, please.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gieska?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Ms. Black?
Yes.
Mr. Van Horst?
Yes.
Mr. Welch? And Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to old business, life safety items, capital improvement, sustainability.
No updates on this. The bid documents will be going in the paper this week. I did just want to provide a short update to the board. So bid documents go in the paper this week. Facility Advisory Council meeting will be scheduled before the February cow, is it? I think Mary Ann's working on locking that in now with Mike and Laura. And then we're meeting with the architect. We did have an issue on Christmas Eve when we were experiencing the cold weather. So we've had this in the past. Whenever we get a significant cold front, obviously we're wind chills in the negative temperatures, negative 20 or below. We always seem to have an issue of how much gas comes into the building, and then our boilers sometimes starve a little bit and will shut off as a safety. And we had that occur the morning of Christmas Eve, and we had two of the pipes on the roof freeze. One of them in the HVAC unit we're replacing this summer, and one in the pool unit. So both of those have been fixed, but I also want to commend Berm, our facilities manager from Aramark. He was here till about 11 o'clock on Christmas Eve. He was in contact with Kristen and I, and then Chief Buckley came over from the village of Riverside and helped us get an official from NICOR, because the original people that they were sending out from NICOR weren't helping. So we ended up getting two of the boilers started and got some things corrected and repaired. But One of the units that was impacted is one that we're replacing, so we're still Band-Aiding that through, trying to get through the summer until we can replace the cafeteria unit. That's all I have on life safety.
Thank you. We can move on to the press policy issue.
Press policy issue, the Policy Advisory Council is set to meet later this week. We'll have a few minor revisions. Most of the revisions I'm bringing to the Policy Advisory Council are accepting IASB's changes. One of those policies that we'll be reviewing is under new business, number C, the resolution for employee expense. We've had that same dollar amount in there. I think it's like $60 for lunch. And so I just realized this, I was talking with Kristen, but like even over vacation with my kids home from school, like the trip to McDonald's, it's not a $5 meal really anymore. So I did want to update that policy so that the reimbursements for meals when staff travels or at a conference can be fair and aligned with what we're currently experiencing in the marketplace. I think we're talking a $10 or $15 increase, but just to follow protocol, I want to run it through the advisory council first before we bring it. So that will be included in the press packet that will come to the January cow.
Is it based on the state or the federal per diem, or it was more of a random number?
It was more of a random number.
Okay.
The mileage is based on the IRS
Yeah.
rate.
I mean, I'd be fine tying it to some other reimbursement number for the meals.
I can look at that.
Yeah.
Depending on where they go, though, depending on what city, county, state you go to, it's a different number.
True.
Right. I think it's right now is in there as 60, and I think when we first originally came up with that number, it was something like 10, 15, and 25. So now we wanted to make it like 75, so that would be like 15, 20, and 30. You know, I mean, it's not a crazy increase.
So the bottom line is we're not taking action on these tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if anyone has additional questions, they should submit them to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Very good. New business payment of bills.
We had one question submitted. Kristen, you want to address that?
On page 192, the question was about our Verizon bill. The first charge of $114 is for hotspots for students. This is paid out of grant money. Next month, we are going to prepay for the hotspots, a little over $2,000, and then we'll spend that money down, but then that way we can spend the grant money and get reimbursed. The other charge for Verizon of around $410 is the monthly bill for administrators' district-issued cell phones, as well as a spare backup should the district's landline ever go down.
I believe those are the only two questions submitted, correct?
Correct.
Okay, moving forward. Go ahead, Maria.
Payment of bills. The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, approves the payment of bills as presented in the January 10, 2023 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Second from Mr. Welch. Give a roll call.
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Ms. Slack?
Yes.
Mr. Benhorst?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
And Ms. Salas?
Yes. We have the annual historic property resolution.
Yes, annual process just to allow us to still include those properties deemed as historic properties in our levy.
Were there any questions?
We discussed this last time.
Okay.
We had the discussion at the cow.
Okay. I just was trying to be generous of spirit if anyone had any questions, but we can move on. Go ahead. Yeah.
The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, approves the historic property resolution that certain assessment relief provided by the Illinois Property Tax Code for historic buildings not apply to taxes that are levied by the Board of Education of School District 208 as presented in the January 10, 2023 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
A second from Mr. Welch. Roll call, please.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Ms. Slack?
Yes.
Mr. Benhorst?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
And Ms. Salas?
Yes. So do we want to hold off on the
Yeah, there's no action
4C?
on
Okay.
4C.
We'll tie that back to the policy discussion. Seeing no additional visitor statements, we can move on to no discussion items requested. Any consideration of items for future meetings? Does anyone have anything? Matters for closed session, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body, student discipline, individual student matters, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
The Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering closed session matters as presented in the December 13, 2022 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Ms. Slack?
Yes.
Mr. Van Horst?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Gasko?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes?
And Ms. Salas?
Yes. Okay, at 7:25, we'll move to closed session.